Boom, we are live betting bananas here for UFC Nashville coming up this weekend. I got with me the ruthless L. Dawson. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, doing wonderful. And as Dave so beautifully puts it, the heart of the show, we got the Cornerman MMA. We got Ryan Quinn. How you doing today?
Fantastic. Just took my son to his first wrestling practice and ready to rock on this.
Awesome. How did it go for him?
Yeah, it went well. We made it through the warm-ups and round of pummeling, and if we get 25 minutes out of it, that's a win. So we are cool.
Beautiful. And we're here live, guys. If you're watching us live, make sure you guys like the video. Make sure, if you're not already, follow us on Fight Bananas on the podcast feed. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, which we are. We got a pup here making a little cameo.
Gonna stick his head in the way.
Always brings more viewers having a little feeling or having a canine in the video. But guys, UFC Nashville. First of all, I love the fact that it's a fight night in a crowded in an arena, right? It's not at the Apex, so they're starting to get back to that. So that's the first thing I love about it. Main event, obviously, Umar Nurmagomedov steps out. We got Rob Font stepping in. It's going to be a catchweight bout at 140 pounds between Corey Sandhagen and Rob Font, and that's a pretty exciting matchup, especially given the depth of the 135-pound division. And then we also got Jessica Andrade taking on Tatiana Suarez, who got her first win back after a 4-year hiatus, getting a not a rear naked choke, I think guillotine in the second round after a 4-year break. But we got a little exciting matchup. On top of that, a lot of young upcoming fighters on the card as well. Elle, what are you looking forward to most on this card?
Man, I love Corey Sandhagen. He's just one of the most exciting fighters, in my opinion. I think he's just now starting to get the credit that he very much deserves. After a big win over Cheeto, I feel like he's been one of those just underrated guys for a long time, and he's just one of my favorite people to watch.
He's exciting because he just brings so much to the table, and he's almost that new generation of MMA where he has the fundamentals, but he brings that uniqueness just enough to make him not just state of the pack, make him every part of everybody else. Ryan, what are you looking forward to during this card?
Yeah, I'm sticking with Sandhagen and Font as well. I love watching Corey Sandhagen fight. I know they love throwing these terms around of the 5-tool fighter now. However, he truly has a mix of everything where he's dangerous with, from the wrestling to the striking to the grappling. Rob Font, as we saw in his last fight, he still has some heavy hands. If he figures things out, it could be a very interesting fight. But yeah, the 135-pound division, especially in the top 5, never disappoints. So I'm looking forward to that fight hardcore.
Yeah, like you said, with the depth of the 135-pound division, you can almost put any two guys together and you can expect fireworks. I'm also a little curious to see how the 5-pound allowance maybe works in any of each of the guys' favors, depending on maybe who carries more muscle, etc. But let's start off. Let's get right into it. Let's get to the best bet of UFC Nashville. Dave usually lets Elle start off, so Elle, I'll let you kick it off. Give us your best bet for UFC Nashville.
So I'm going to go straight to the main event. We can get into it in a little bit more detail later. But, man, as I was saying, Corey Sandhagen is one of my favorite guys to watch. Here in this matchup, I just feel like he is better at what Font is best at, but with more power. Like, both guys throw a ton of volume, have great footwork, great movement. But I think the length, the power, and the danger factor all favor Corey Sandhagen here. Font can be a slow starter. He paces himself really well, but he does have a tough weight cut to 135. Obviously, they're doing the catch weight here, but I don't think he was expecting to have to make weight of any kind this early with his fight. Wasn't supposed to be for another 2 weeks. So I do expect him to be in shape, but I don't know that just the 5 pounds with the earlier weigh-in is necessarily going to help him substantially. I do trust Font's durability here over 5 rounds, especially after 5 rounds against Cheeto and 5 rounds against Aldo. We know he can take the damage and he can stay in the fight. So I do expect it to make it to the scorecards, but I just think Corey gets it done here. I have him by decision.
Yeah, I think to your point, like you said, we've seen that Rob Font, he's able to last, right? He can take a lot of damage, but he'll stay out there, fighting where he's fighting out of. He's not going to come down He'll give you what he's got, and he'll stay out there. So if you're maybe looking at maybe on top of that, over 2.5, over 3.5, given that it's a main event, that's also maybe something you can add on there as well. Ryan, what are you looking at as far as your best bet for UFC Nashville?
I'm staying up top as well. I'm going with Corey Sandhagen over Rob Font. I'm not worried about Rob being in shape. It's just, it's especially with the way he fights, he can carry himself, pick his rest spots and rounds. However, I am worried about in a short notice fight against somebody like Corey Sandhagen. He's such a difficult opponent to drill for, to train for. I don't think it's enough time on the flip. There's a big difference in being in shape and having the right game plan that you train for and everything like that with the timing. Against Corey, it's just too difficult, especially with as dangerous as Corey is. Even if Rob was planning for Corey for 3 months, I still think it's a difficult fight. So I'm going Corey over Rob.
Yeah, and I think, oops, sorry about that. With the main event, that's the most what you're going to see, especially with Rob Font coming in that short notice. Like you said, Corey Sandhagen isn't a typical matchup, right? He's not somebody, especially in that division with that length that he has and the diversity of attacks that he brings to the table. He's not a typical guy that you can train for. He's almost like, let's say you're in the middleweight division. It's an Israel Adesanya, right? It's one of those lengthier guys. It's those Jalen Turners, that are just a little extra lengthy that can, work around and do those little extra things as far as that body type goes. But let's get into our underdog play of the night. We got a lot of young fighters, a lot of up and comers on this one. So it's a little bit interesting to see who we got going on. Al, I'll let you kick it off. What's your underdog play of the day?
So I'm going to go with one of my teammates here, actually, in Cody Durden over Jake Hadley. Man, Cody is one of those guys. He's always in shape. I don't think short notice fights really put too much pressure on him. I think he's always ready. He always has cardio. He always has the ability to push a pace over 3 rounds. And here he has been training. He's been in the gym even before he took this fight. He was preparing for a fight, which I think is still technically booked for about 8-ish weeks after this fight, which is crazy. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. But man, Cody, he is such great wrestling. Like, he has such an amazing ability to ride, and his mat returns are really, really good. He has great control here. But I think something that he's been working on is his back control and his jiu-jitsu. I think he will bring even better control to this fight than he did to the Charles Johnson fight, along with some added submission danger as well, giving Hadley something else to worry about in an opponent that he was not preparing for. And I think that Hadley, a lot of people think of him as a wrestler. In my opinion, he's more of a striker with great jiu-jitsu. I don't think he has remotely the wrestling needed to take a guy like Cody Durden down. And I think Cody's pressure, his awkward striking style, he kind of darts in, and he's really hard to deal with. I think that pressure and his ability to scramble, I think, is going to have Hadley pressed up against the cage for the majority of this fight, losing those grappling exchanges.
Yeah, and to your point, the last 3 of his fights that went to the decision, he had 4, 5, and 11 takedowns in those fights. The only fight that he won that he didn't have a good amount of takedowns, he won via first round knockout, right? So I think, to your point, the amount of grappling and control time that he has on top, it really makes him a safe bet, because when you have those guys that can get on top and really control and dominate position, and really sometimes, maybe aren't attacking as much submissions, but are safer, right? They're not going to get reversed as much. They'll stay with that control time. That's what you expect to see with somebody who's just a little bit safer on that side. Ryan, how do you feel about your underdog play of the day?
I have Cody over Jake as well. I just, yeah, it's going to be an easy night. But you're going to see in this fight the difference between really good wrestling and really good MMA wrestling. And what you're going to see is Cody going for a double leg, an initial defense by Jake, but then Cody's going to be able to come off to a single leg or high crotch and change stuff to where Jake is just going to forfeit the position and get clock chewed against him against the fence or on the ground. It's a horrible matchup for Jake. I really like Cody. Cody's training at my alma mater, and I know they got a who's who of a look there, especially with the training, the coaches that put time in, and I got Jake all the way.
Now, I think with that, that's a pretty good pick, especially with both you guys taking the same pick. So Ryan, since I'll let Elle kick off the best bet and the underdog play, I'll let you get into your 3-5 parlay. Like I said, this fight doesn't really have as many notable names outside of maybe the top two. And then you got a Billy Q versus Damon Jackson on the undercard that I think is going to be a super exciting matchup as well. But this card doesn't have as many names. Educate us a little bit. What you got for your 3-fight parlay?
Yeah, okay. You said Billy Q. I have Billy Q and Damon Jackson ending inside the distance. I think Damon's method of victory here is submission, as it usually is. That's how he's got to go about it. Damon has been knocked out in the past, even most recent fight, and Billy has pretty serious knockout power. So I have a feeling it's going to end one way or the other in this one. And then I have I have Dustin Jacoby over Kennedy Nzechukwu. I know I was going to mess up that name. And I just think that Dustin's kickboxing and his experience is just going to be too crisp and just too much for Kennedy to handle, even though I think Kennedy is a pretty well-rounded fighter in his own right. I just think that stylistically speaking, this is the ultimate game of rock, paper, scissors, and that's what you're going to see here. And then I have Tatiana Suarez finishing Jessica Andrade. I think that the way Tatiana presents her submission game, the way Jessica kind of comes forward north-south, she's going to put herself into some bad situations. So I got Tatiana by finish. I have Dustin Jacoby and Billy Q and Damon Jackson inside the distance.
Yeah, I like that Justin Jacoby fight versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. Because to your point, Kennedy, he's growing in the octagon, and you're seeing that growth, from the beginning of his career to now. But what you see sometimes is early in the fight, he'll make some mistakes, and it takes him a little bit of extra time to get in and to warm up into the fight. And to your point, a guy like Jacoby, who is very experienced in managing the distance and being in the right position, right? He's not going to allow himself to get into too much danger. And I think looking at his last 5 fights, I don't see a finish, or the last time he's gotten finished in the last 5. Yeah, so he hasn't gotten finished in the UFC since 2012. So that's going to be a hard put for Kennedy to be that guy to do it for the first one in 11 years. Elle, what are you looking at for your 3-fight parlay?
Let me scroll. I'm sorry. I don't know what he's doing. This is my 70-pound dog thinks he can sit in my lap in this chair. So excuse me while I scroll here. Okay. So my 3-fight parlay, my first leg, I have Kyler Phillips over Raoni Barcelos. Barcelos has been one of my favorite fighters for a really long time, but I think I have to accept that he is starting to go downhill. He's definitely getting older. He's 1-3 in his last 4, with his one win being over a guy on a 4-fight skid. He seems to have lost a lot of his speed and durability, which were 2 of his best traits, especially shown in his last fight against Nurmagomedov. I just don't see him having very many advantages here against a longer, very well-rounded Kyler Phillips. Phillips probably doesn't put him away here, but I'm not 100% sure that I'm banking on Barcelos' durability still sticking around, especially after coming off a big KO loss. But I do think he has a great reach advantage. He's very well-rounded, has good grappling as well. I think him on the money line is a great play. My second leg, I have Ignacio Bahamondes beating Ludovic Klein. This is another one where I couldn't decide between the decision and the finish. Klein has not been finished at lightweight, so part of me wants to lean that way, but I also don't feel like he's fought guys who are nearly as dangerous as Bahamondes. Bahamondes, he stays super defensively sound. He does an amazing job controlling the pace and the range of the fight. Ludovic kind of runs into things. He has an explosive style. I can see him running into some sharp knee, a big kick, a spinning back kick. I can really see him running into those things. I think people are expecting not to see a finish from Bahamondes because of the Trey Ogden fight. Trey was staying super safe. He was staying on the outside. He was playing that long game intentionally, and I doubt Ludovic Klein really does the same. That point deduction really saved him from the loss against Jai Herbert. And Herbert hurt Klein several times as well. And he is nowhere near the striker that Ignacio Bahamondes is. So I'm sticking with the money line here. And then for my third leg, to add some value to the parlay, I'm actually taking Tatiana Suarez by decision over Jessica Andrade. Andrade's durability is definitely starting to go down. She, her big hooks, her pitbull style, that was what she built a career off of. And I don't know that she still has that push in her at this point. I really don't like her going back and forth between flyweight and strawweight. It's like she can't find a home. And I understand this is her second time back down at strawweight, but I don't like that back and forth between weight classes. I feel like Jan is not known for her knockout power, and that KO over Andrade says a little bit about her chin. I don't think we can expect Suarez to hurt her really on the feet here, but I think that Jessica Andrade's patented forward pressure is just going to set up the perfect double leg for Tatiana Suarez here. I actually think that Andrade is going to be tough enough to make to the scorecards here. I know Tatiana, she has some subs, but I don't think her jiu-jitsu, I don't think she has nearly the submission threat that an Erin Blanchfield does here. And I think that she's going to spend a lot of time in Jessica Andrade's guard, and I think Andrade will be tough here. So I actually have Tatiana by decision.
Yeah, and I think just to start off here at the beginning of that, Haoni's, if you gave maybe this fight 2 years ago, this would definitely be a pick'em. It would be a lot closer, but with him, with the 135-pound division and just lighter fighters in general, their prime is a lot sooner just because their speed declines a lot quicker, and speed matters a lot more than power in those lighter divisions. So once they lose that speed and you don't really have that knockout power at 135, there's not much there left for you, right? You're just really a moving target. And with the 8-year difference between Kyler Phillips and Raoni Barcelo, that's a big gap as well. And looking at that, when you have gaps that big, it tends to favor the younger fighter as well. But let's get into the main event. I want to kind of just break this down a little bit more because it is a really exciting matchup, between two guys that bring a lot to the table. Like Rob Font, before he took the couple of losses that he did and worked his way back against Adrian Yanez, he was able to, he was working his way to the top, looked at one of maybe a title contender in the future. But this could actually set him up in a really good position if he's able to get the win, right? If he's able to beat a guy in Corey Sandhagen, who's close to the top of the division, who's always been a threat to be just right there, right? He was that close against TJ Dillashaw. He was right there against other fighters as well. So, Ryan, I'll let you break down, get into the main event. Give us your thoughts on that. How do you think that the X's and O's goes in that fight?
I see a lot of up and down with Corey. I see a lot of mixing it up with takedown attempts, striking, and vice versa. I don't see him really forcing anything. I just see him kind of keeping Rob on his toes until something opens up. I think that Rob will really try hard to attempt to establish his jab. I think that you're going to see a lot of that in the round, but I feel like, especially in a 5-round fight, the points are going to pile up because Corey's going to be a little bit quicker to score on Rob. Rob will probably start throwing counter power punches, try to throw some kicks in there. But I think even with the way Corey moves, it's really tough for Rob to really score on the kicks. I just see a lot of Corey mixing it up and controlling the way the fight goes, controlling the dance.
Yeah, I think the path of victory is so much more diverse for Corey that it's really hard for Rob Font. Like you said, he has really good boxing, right? And when he's able to get on the inside, he can land those power punches. But when you have a guy in Corey that just moves so well, not just front to back, but laterally, right? He's able to just mix things up. I think it just makes it harder for a guy whose power is fighting on the inside to have a high likelihood of winning that fight. El, how are you feeling about the X's and O's of the main event?
I 100% agree with what Ryan's saying here. I think that's Font. Anytime he's in the cage, that's his number one goal, is to establish that jab, which he does super well. But I just don't think he's going to win the jab game against Corey Sandhagen. I think Corey's a little bit longer. I think Ryan's right. He's a little bit faster and he's a little bit sharper with that. And I can see Font really losing that battle, honestly, almost reminiscent of the Adrian Yanez fight, but reversed, where I think that he'll be on the receiving end of those more powerful jabs and he'll be getting stuck with those. I agree. I don't think that Font's going to be able to do much kicking. I think it's going to be really hard for him to find that range. I do see Corey initiating some grappling exchanges. I think that Font does a little bit better job with those than Chito Vera does, just because I think he'll be a little bit less apt to try to throw things up off his back, which Cheeto's very willing to do. But I think Corey wins all those grappling exchanges as well. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. I even think he edges him out a little bit in the cardio, which Font isn't necessarily known for slowing down. But I think that Corey's volume over time is substantially higher. He's just one of those guys. He's a very Max Holloway-esque where he's very consistent across several rounds, across 5 rounds. And I think he's going to land some really big shots and just do a lot of damage on Rob Font here.
So I'm going to ask you guys a question that you're not prepared for at all. So I'm going to throw you guys off in a little bit. But on these nights where these cards, like let's say where they're not pay-per-views, there's a lot of up-and-comers. There's a lot of guys that maybe a lot of fans don't know about. Ryan, give us one fighter that you think fans should look out for in this upcoming card.
Don't take mine.
I don't really have one. I mean, I like Kyler Phillips. People kind of know who he is, though. I'm gonna have to defer to L.
I'm gonna say Diego Lopez. I think that's a one to keep an eye out for. Once again, I don't know that. I feel like most of your pretty solid fans are gonna know a lot of these guys. There's some young guns for sure, like your Jake Hadleys and your Diego Lopez's, but all of them have had great performances that are memorable. And I think just seeing Lopez on that short notice fight against a guy like Movsar, I'm really looking forward to watching him. I think he's a really exciting fighter. I think that Gavin Tucker's a great matchup for him here. He's a guy who's been on a very long layoff. I think it's an opportunity for him to shine and show what he's made of. So he's one to keep an eye out for.
So somebody I was scouting a little bit is actually on the beginning of the card. Asu Almabayev. He's coming in at 17-2, fighting on the regional scene. He's not necessarily the most exciting fighter, but he was what we were talking about earlier, where he can get on top. He'll get that control time and he'll be able to win fights in that manner, right? So that fight against Ade Osborne, maybe a potential fight or prop you can look at is the going to the decision, because he's really good at getting control. Like I said, he's making his UFC debut, so it's always questionable when they're coming in if they're going to have the pre-fight jitters, 1, and 2, if the level of competition that they face outside is comparable to what they face inside of the octagon. Ade Osborne is obviously no slack as well. He's got great striking as well. He's an exciting guy, especially in the flyweight division. But I think this is going to be an exciting fight, especially for a guy making his UFC debut. El, close us out on UFC Nashville. Let us know how you're feeling about it. What's your final thoughts?
This is a great card. Like, this is one where you should definitely be tuning into the prelims. You should be watching the entire card because there are several good fights. There's some really great vets on the card. And we also have some amazing young guns, like you said. We have the first flyweight fight of the night. You've got guys like Diego Lopez and Cody Durden and Jake Hadley. So there's so many good matchups. This is one that maybe your casual fans won't know everybody, but they should definitely tune in for.
Ryan, final thoughts?
Yeah, total sleeper card. You know, there's been a lot of good ones the last few weeks. You got a lot of guys in here looking to make a name for themselves, fighting other guys that want to make a name for themselves. They're going to take that spot from each other. The main event, as much as we both favor Corey, it's a great fight between two great fighters. The co-main event as well. And that being said, back to the main event real quick. Tomorrow on all Fight Bananas podcast platforms, as well as my YouTube channel, I do have a method of victory for Rob Font. I will be posting that for everybody to check out. So check it out on those platforms.
So if you guys are Rob Font bettors and you want to look for what his path to victory is, make sure is it the Cornerman MMA on YouTube as well?
Sorry?
Shout out the YouTube channel so we can check that out.
Yeah, the Cornerman _ MMA. You already know where it is. And then, of course, like I said, the Fight Bananas audio podcast platforms.
Awesome, guys. Well, from L. Dawson, Mr. Ryan Quinn, the Cornerman. I appreciate everybody that's watching. Like he said, make sure you guys follow Fight Bananas on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everything. We appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right.